This is a tearaway stabilizer, and like its name, you can simply tear it off. This is a cutaway stabilizer, and it makes you feel weak because, well, you need scissors to cut it off. These are the two main kinds of stabilizers embroiderers use, and today I'll show you how to use them properly, as well as an extra one for those special fabrics. Watch until the end to learn how to stabilize your fabrics like a pro embroiderer. Firstly, why are stabilizers so important for machine embroidery? Well, it stops the fabric from shifting, distorting, or even puckering your fabric. Here you can see the difference between this shirt that used the cutaway versus here's a fabric that didn't use any stabilizers, and well, you can see the difference of how puckered versus how nice and pretty that looks. When we use the right stabilizer, it minimizes many issues from happening, and it gives you the best embroidery results that will last a long time. Let's start with tearaway. I think this is everyone's go-to when you first get started in embroidery. The reason is because when you're done embroidering, you don't have to cut anything behind. All you do is tear it off, and you're on to the next project. Unfortunately, this doesn't work for all fabrics, and here are the ones you want to avoid. Any stretchy fabrics like t-shirts, hoodies, or sweaters. The reason is that tearaway isn't stable enough to hold any stretchy fabric, so it may rip during your embroidery process and end up shifting your canvas. Tearaway works best with fabrics that aren't stretchy like jean, twill, and leather. So for example, a hat would be a great use for a tearaway. They have enough stabilization on their own that tearaway simply seals the deal with that extra stability. Note that you can get away with using tearaway on stretchy fabrics if the design is super simple, and even then you still run the risk of the design shifting, and after a couple of washes it may lose its shape. Now this one right here is a piece of cutaway, so I'd have to cut it. I just wanted to save it so I can show you guys how I would cut it around. This is the backing of a cutaway on a stretchy shirt, and the reason I chose for it is even after a couple of washes, it'll still hold out its shape really nice and neat. Whereas I fear that if I were to use some tearaway, it would lose its shape after a couple of washes, so to avoid that, I just prefer to stick with a cutaway. If you're using a complex and heavy design, you definitely run the risk of your design shifting, puckering, and just overall not looking its best or holding out for a really long time. So it's best to simply avoid tearaway if you're using anything that is stretchy like these. Now, if you're using non-stretchy fabric, simply remember these rules. Remember to use a heavier weight stabilizer like 3-ounce tearaway on thicker fabrics that have high stitch counts, and use a lighter stabilizer with like 1.5 ounces if you're using a lighter fabric and your design is lighter overall. Tearaway is great for hats, jeans, leather, anything that is not stretchy. This is your go-to. Now let's talk about cutaway. Cutaway is a strong stabilizer that you can't rip with your hands, and you actually need scissors to cut it. The benefit of cutaway is that it's great to support stretchy fabrics. We're talking about things like shirts, sweaters, hoodies, anything that's cotton or overall that stretches out whenever you wear it. And the biggest difference is that you have to cut out the back instead of simply tearing it off. Now this isn't all bad because you end up leaving some sort of support for your embroidery fabric, and this will overall help support those stitches to last for a really long time. The main problem with cutaway is it sometimes can be a little too thick for some light fabrics, and it might create something called a shadow. This is where you see the stabilizer on top of the fabric as you're wearing it. Not very noticeable here right now, but if you've ever worn white t-shirts with a cutaway stabilizer, well, you know what I'm talking about. This can be unpleasant to see, but thankfully there are different cutaways to help solve this issue. This is a no-show mesh cutaway. It's just like a regular cutaway, except it's lighter and uses this grid style for extra support. These stabilizers come in different colors, so depending on the fabric that you're embroidering most on, you might want to get that specific color. For example, me, I'm always wearing black shirts, so I definitely need to get me some black no-show cutaway. These will definitely help with removing that shadow on the back of your fabric. Another version you can get is an iron-on no-show mesh. This means that you can fuse it on your fabric so it stays on permanently, making it easier to hoop. So rather than the extra stabilizer just hanging around, it sticks to your fabric fully. The no-show mesh is a must if you're embroidering on anything that is stretchy, as it's super versatile and can get you that really nice clean embroidery. Currently, I run a 1.5 ounce no-show mesh, and when a design is digitized and hooped correctly, there is no need to add a second stabilizer. But like always, test it out and see what works best for you. Also, make sure to keep every single one of the rules inside of your roll because you may not remember what kind of fabric it is. I have quite a few rolls that I have absolutely no idea what they are anymore, so little tip right there. These are the 2 or 3 kinds of stabilizers that you'll use on your everyday type of embroidery. But what about dense fabrics like towels or beanies? This is where the wash away topper comes in handy. The purpose of this tool is to stop the threads from sinking into the fabric. If you didn't have this on a dense fabric like a towel, the threads would sink in and distort your design. Overall, it just wouldn't look so pretty. Now, because this towel isn't stretchy at all, what we can do is we can combine it with a tearaway like I did here. I still have some pieces to rip off. We place the wash away topper on the other side, and it's a great combination to work with a fabric like this one. Using tearaway to make quick work of getting rid of the back, and using the wash away to avoid those threads from sinking into your fabrics. But this is not the same with a fabric like a beanie. And the reason why is because a beanie, after all, is pretty stretchy. This is when the no-show cutaway mesh comes in handy. We simply do the same thing where the no-show cutaway would go underneath and the wash away topper would go on top. You would then hoop it all together and you'd end up with a really nice and clean embroidered design. You can even use the iron-on no-show cutaway with the same color as the beanie and use the wash-away topper to ensure that those threads will stay on top and avoid getting any sort of distortion. I've recently started using the wash-away topper and it is a night and day difference when it comes to those dense fabrics. By the way, we have a blog if you want to have a handy guide to read upon. The link is in the description. Honestly guys, stabilizers are something that we all suffer when we first start. You okay? Not only because of all of the options, but also learning how to hoop, thread, and do it all simultaneously. I congratulate you for pushing forward on your learning. I promise you it gets easier. You pretty much become a master at choosing the appropriate stabilizers, so just remember to practice, practice, and don't give up. Also, visit our website for more education, products, and designs for your embroidery needs. This is Ken from Embroidery Legacy, and when you're ready, watch this next video right here, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye guys.